Hello. Okay, today I want to speak about a very vast subject, which is uh, controlling our mind and mastering our mind, even. Okay, and it can be very complicated in a way, but I don't think that is that complicated. The thing is that we think that is complicated. We perceive that as something complicated, and that's why we can't change anything at all. But that's not what I believe. Okay, first of all, my own experience is that I've started to become more aware of what was happening in my mind and how to start to master that in a way, just at a certain level. But when I was doing judo, and especially competitions, judo competitions, but okay, even in my training, it became very clear and very at a very early stages that all the limitations are in my mind. Okay, it's what I've been taught very early, and that was my experience. So I became at some point good at being aware of where is my limitation, what is the problem, and what do I have to overcome. And step by step, I've been able to manage that and to get better and better at these limitations, and so to overcome those limitations. To certain extent, I've become, yes, good at going further and going above those limitations. And very quickly, it became obvious for me that if things are that important in my mind, then it's not only in sports and in judo and in competition, but it's obviously in the whole life. So my goal has become to, hey, just take that and do the same in your whole life. But it was something which appeared as much more difficult and complicated and tricky in my whole life. Okay, so now the more I'm working in a way, but I'm getting more and more aware of what is happening in my mind, in my life, and where is the problem. And the more I can boil things down to the same point as what I was doing in judo, to say, hey, here is the trick, here is the problem, and I know what is the problem, and I just have to change that. And that becomes much more obvious and so much more easy to change when you're at this stage. So I would like to show you exactly what I'm talking about and why it must be very easy, very simple at least, to know what to do. Okay, first of all, what is difficult? The mind is always controlling everything. Everything comes from our mind. And why that? First of all, we can see that all our limitations come from our mind. And everything that we want to do, let's see, it's even easier to perceive when we want to improve in any way in our life. So if we want to change something from ourselves, to change something in our life, because changing something is always to have a better life. Okay, to have a better life, it means to feel enthusiastic, to feel energetic, and that's always, I think, what we are looking for. And so in order for that, we want to acquire a new skill, we want to create something, we want to build something, we want to change conditions in our life. Okay, and all that in a way requires that we express ourselves. We have to let something out of ourselves. If we create something, we have to let something out of ourselves. It comes from our mind, our personality, something that is within, that nobody can see at first, and we have to expose that. And I think that it's what is difficult. Okay, and if we want to learn a new skill, something, or to do something new, at first we are not good at that, and we have so to expose our weaknesses in a way. And that's, in a way, that's the same thing. We have to expose, to let something out, and to expose that a part of ourselves which is not known or of others, or at least not experientially. And that is, I think, what is frightening at some point. It's frightening because we always feel like we have something to hide. It feels we are secure in a certain way when things are always the same. We don't have to expose ourselves, and that is what is frightening. We have to change something, to show something else. That's frightening. That's basically everything. That if you really boil things down to what is difficult when you want to do something, well, you have to expose yourself, or to go through, through actions and steps that are not that don't let that enthusiasm comes out from yourself, and that's what you're looking for. And if you don't feel that, it feels like boring and difficult. Those are basically the two kinds of things that prevents us from moving, I would say. But this fear is really something that comes from our mind, and limitations, all kinds of limitations comes from our mind, because even if we are limited in a material way, I would say, we can always take steps and actions to change things and to evolve in anything we want. But the thing is that it's difficult, first of all, in our mind. If we weren't just taking actions again and again until we reach the point we want, we would do a lot of things. But we don't do that because we're afraid. The limitations are in our mind, first of all. Everything comes from our mind, every time. So when we are aware that limitations are within ourselves, then we can focus on that, instead of a lot of external things that are always wrong reasons, wrong, more or less excuses, or not at all the problem. Okay, there are problems outside, but first of all, it comes from us. Do we take actions to change things? Do we just act accordingly to what is outside and say, okay, does it work? It doesn't work, I do something else. Okay, does it work? No, I do something else. We could move very quickly, but that's not what we do. It's just because of what is happening in our mind. So once we have that clear in our mind, then we can focus on that. And if we realize that the problem is what we feel inside, then we can really try to change something. And by experience, we know that if we don't have this fear, if we really just are enthusiastic and take actions, we have a lot of resources. That's obvious. So the problems are in our mind, but also the solutions and the resources and everything that we are looking for are within ourselves. We can feel it when we feel good, we feel great, we feel we have a lot of energy and resources. We feel everything can be changed and everything can be done from the good state of mind. Okay, so when we are aware of that, we can point that out and say, here is the only thing I have to overcome. So what we are afraid of, what prevents us from moving, taking actions, living a great life, is because of what we think, what we feel. And we feel threatened, we feel that we are afraid, we feel that we are limited. A lot of things like that, very negative and very limited. And all that is only based on feelings, in a way, feelings, and what we think, and all that is just stories. Just stories. There's nothing true in that. It's just maybe we have had experiences in the past and we say, okay, it will always be the same, but it's not true. It's just a past experience. And very usually it's just based on stories that are completely made up. So the mind is really where everything takes place, and all that is based on stories. Every time it's stories, and we're afraid of, we feel threatened because, hey, if I do that, or if this happens, maybe I can lose my job. If I lose my job, I feel like if I'm threatened of death. And that's not true at all, but that's what we feel, really, and we are very afraid of any results that can occur if we do the wrong thing, or many things. But all that is just based on stories. And we don't know if we lose our job, what will happen. We don't know. Maybe if we take action and we just do what we want to do at this point, maybe we'll find that we have a lot of resources, that many things will happen, and that our life will change for the better, but we have not experienced that, and we don't know it. We just have a story in our mind and a feeling that we are deeply threatened if we lose our job. But all that is just stories, always stories. So what I mean here is that what we feel as limitations, as ourself, and ourself being limited, is based on stories. So all that images, feeling of who we are is just an illusion. It's completely an illusion. And that's really the story. That's it. That's everything's there. That's an illusion, because what we feel we are, we have an image of ourselves based on what we feel, how we perceive ourselves, and all of that is based on stories. And all those stories are just made up. Even if it's based on real things, the real things are still there. The story we have about it is made up. All that is illusions. When we realize that, we can point that out each and every time we feel limited. Here is the problem. What I feel is not who I am, is not my limitations, is not the reality, is not the truth. It's an illusion made of stories. And I can feel it, perceive it in my body. That's why it feels so real. That's why I really feel that I am this person with these limitations, these fears, these threats that are coming to me, and all that seems very real because I can feel it in my body, but all that is just feelings, emotions, and all that comes from what is in my mind. So stories, it's completely made up. If you are able to really feel your emotions, you will feel that you have a lot of fear and you feel threatened a lot of times, whereas there's nothing happening around you. It's just about stories. You feel threatened because of the behavior of someone, but you're not in danger already. So why to feel fear or threatened at this time? It's just based on stories, every time. So if you are aware to realize that, and I think the point is really to realize that more and more, it's always happening in my mind. So it's always stories. So it's always illusions. So I am not what I feel. And another proof of that is that if I can point out my feeling, point out my thoughts, my beliefs, it's that I'm not those feelings, those emotions, those thoughts, those beliefs, because I cannot point out what I am. My finger can point out my body, but my finger cannot point out my finger. It's impossible, So you can point out something else. It means that you have to be someone else. You can, once again, your finger can point out your body, but you cannot point out yourself. So if you point out and you realize and you're aware of your emotions, it means that you are not this emotion.